Well, you saw this story. We talked about it earlier this week on this program and other shows here in Real America's Voice. This past Easter Sunday at around 6 in the morning, authorities put out a trailer of around 200 Bibles that had been burning near a well-known church in Tennessee. Global Vision Bible Church, a house of worship in Mount Juliet, led by Pastor Greg Locke, who is known for sharing his political and social views. He's pretty straightforward. Pastor Locke stated that the inferno was 100% directed at the church. No question about it, he said. This comes about 2 years after Locke made headlines for holding a burning service to encourage his followers to burn Ouija boards, copies of Harry Potter, and other items of similar nature. Here with me now, and an obvious attack on religion, is the host of Church and State, Lucas Miles. Lucas, good to have you here.
Hey, good to be back.
Let's be clear about this, Lucas. A lot of attacks are going on, arson fires at churches and synagogues, burning of Bibles like we see here. It's happening a lot more, but it's not getting reported very much. True or false?
I think that's definitely true. You know, we covered that on Church and State, kind of this increasing rise of really, persecution or attacks or, vandalism, threats, all of those things happening against churches. I know, I'm a pastor of church myself. I know we've had, several instances this year, not to this extent, but things that come up that are concerning. Not every single one gets reported by any means.
Right. So why is this happening? Why have Christians become free game? What is it that Christians have done in the last 25 years that have suddenly made them the focus of so much venom, shall we say?
Yeah, it's interesting. In this particular account with Locke's church, there's, if somebody wants to buy a bunch of Bibles and burn them, we live in the United States of America. Maybe they're free to do that. But the moment they take a trailer and drop it off in the middle of a church's, drive or intersection there, that's when this becomes really a crime. And they are, lighting that on fire on somebody else's property. This is actually, this is truly an act of arson and vandalism and all these things that's going with it. I think that, look, there's I think pressure just that's being created. There's a spiritual war that's happening. We have an administration that's also, cataclysmically against faith. We saw that here recently with their Easter proclamation. And I think that all of that kind of starts trickling down, and that pressure has to go someplace. And we have this giant pressure cooker that's been happening here in the United States of America, and it's going to blow in different areas. And I think we're seeing that blowback happen against the church right now.
Yeah. So what do you do about it? I mean, do these churches need better security? Do they need armed guard? I mean, honestly, because a bigger concern is that somebody shows up like they did in Sugar Land, Texas a few years ago, and shows up and starts shooting the place up only to get shot themselves. But, these things also happen. Should churches be concerned about the security of the parishioners?
I mean, look, we just saw this at Joe Osteen's church, here recently at Lakewood. We have armed security at our church every single week. I think a lot of churches in our area and around the country do as well. I remember seeing this years ago in Africa and thinking it was so bizarre that these churches had armed guards outside of them. And here we are, a decade later or so. And of course, we all really have a lot of the same things. And I think this is kind of necessary in the world in which we live in. Not only do we have kind of the crazed, lone gunman, sort of thing that we saw maybe, on a rise here the last decade. But now we have sort of this intentional, more agenda-driven, politically driven and charged, attacks against churches. And I think that it's good for churches to have security. I think obviously we need to pray. We need to, lean into the Lord. I think most importantly is we need to not let anything steal our joy. We need to make sure that no matter what, that we can, count it all for gain, that any sort of, threat to personal peril, it is light and momentary from a biblical standpoint. Doesn't mean we don't try to prevent it. We try to prevent it. We operate in the natural in that way, but we make sure that spiritually speaking, we are still full of joy.
And well, that's a good point you make. You have to lift your head up, right? Look up and have faith in where we're going. I'll give you that. But at the same time, and this is one of the things I want you to weigh in on this, Lucas.
Yeah.
Because, you hear non-Christians, well, that's not the Christian thing to do. Let me tell you what the Christian thing not to do is be a doormat. Being a Christian doesn't mean being a doormat, getting pushed around, getting walked on, because that's what the people that, well, you're not a Christian if you do that, comes from people that are not Christians at all. I'd like you to address that. We don't have to be doormats here, do we?
No, not at all. Look, I mean, I'm a pastor. I've been a pastor. I've been a senior pastor for 20 years. I've been in ministry for longer than that. I've been assaulted, twice. Physically assaulted both times. I've had threats on my life. I've had people that have come after me. We've had people show up to meetings and things. I'm not. I don't know as though I'm a household name by any means, but I'm out here enough in media that the people know who I am, and we've had some people that have targeted, me as a result. Very much so. We have, security. This is something we take very seriously. The work that we're doing, it's to help a lot of people, and we're not going to look for somebody to thwart that. That's different than, if we live in a world where all of a sudden they just start beheading Christians and these things, there comes a point where you can't fight back against the government, maybe to some extent, just because of the nature of weapons of war. But, the reality is that we are called to, I think, the right to defend ourselves. I think we have that right as Christians, and we need to not let just people walk on us. And look, at the end of the day, I'm willing to die for Jesus if that's what it comes down to. But I'm not going to just give my life at the hands of some, crazy lunatic that shows up. That's not persecution. That's just insanity. And so we're going to do our best to stop those accounts.
Yeah, I heard somebody ask recently, what are you willing to give up to support your cause? And you just said it. I'm willing to die for my cause. Anything else, you're willing to be bought. If you're not willing to die for whatever it is you believe in, everyone else is willing to be bought. The price just happens to be, different places. I think what you said, Lucas, is incredibly poignant and important. I give you the last word.
Yeah, look, I think most people in America are for sale, and there's a lot of things I wouldn't die for, right? But I would die for my faith, and I think that that every single Christian really needs to be thinking about that today. Not that I hope that happens, and I pray to God that it doesn't, for people in this nation around the world. But the reality is that there is persecution happening against the church. There are Christians who do have to make that choice every single day that are losing their lives, and I think that we have to make sure that we are not taking things so much for granted that we forget about really the eternal purpose that we're living for, at the end of the day.
Lucas Miles, I'll just give you one of these. Amen, my friend. Thank you.
Thanks, brother.